This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook, and I have an old dear friend and truly a mentor of mine. He doesn't know it, Joe Sena. He is the CEO and founder of Spartan, and we have known each other from the inception of Spartan.
It's got to be 10, 11 years now.
Yeah,
right?
It's right there. And you and I have one thing in common. It changed my life. We had a conversation. You said I'm an overnight success, 17 and a half years.
That's right.
And that's what I teach young entrepreneurs. And I really want to get to that with you because I think the most needed person for entrepreneurs in America is Joe Sena. I'm not just saying that because I'm here. It's because what you teach.
You hear this?
Yeah.
You hear, John, you hear this?
It's true, though. What you teach is what's missing. Everything else you can access online, and it's really about discipline, consistency, pain threshold. Since we had a conversation, I've thought about sending my kids. I have a 9-year-old.
Take them.
All my kids to learn. Where did that threshold in?
Send this to my wife, please.
It's true though.
Yeah.
It's what's needed in America. The people that are going to be successful, the division between people that have a backbone now, that are willing to not hurt their feelings. Forget even feelings, right? It's just the amount of physical activity that people can take. How important is that threshold?
Well, you just got me thinking before I even answer that question. Like, I have children. We have children. We have 4 kids, right? How many kids?
4.
You have 4, right?
3 girls and a boy.
And how old?
2018, 15, and 9.
Okay, so you're a little older, but in there. And my oldest is 14. But you just got me thinking. It's actually easier for them, in the sense that if they have some of the skills you just described, oh my God, look to the left, look to the right. We got a bunch of marshmallows as competition.
Yeah, I totally. Right? When we grew up, more people were like us because we were pushed. We were taught work hard. It was about hours and pain, and it's okay. The work hard, play hard. Everything was really hard.
It was hard.
And now hard is a bad word.
But I kind of feel like the grandfather that says, when I was growing up, we had to walk both ways uphill with no shoes. But it was certainly harder when my father's father was growing, right? Yeah. Every generation has gotten softer.
And there's exceptions, which throws off the norm. So people will always take a Goggins or Joe, right?
Yeah.
50, ultra marathon, that's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But take the average person. Like my little brother is just a mule. He's a workhorse. He went to Penn, Wharton, University of London School of Economics, MBA. But he will work still today 21 hours before he goes to bed because he just keeps pushing himself, and it's built into him. I think some of it's unconscious DNA that we've inherited from great-grandparents, grandparents to us.
Sure.
But a lot of it's just trained.
You got to train it, yeah. And so it's fun, right? Because you and I are in the mix with kids. So it's not only just talking about it for our environment and our business and folks we want to inspire, but it's our own children. And I'm pretty hard on my kids.
Yeah, I've read a few stories.
But even being hard and even I've had people stop me in the street, like even being hard, I'm not that hard.
Right.
It's not that hard. I don't make the kids go on the Lewis and Clark expedition. It's not that fucking
Stuck
hard.
on the ice, right?
Yeah, right.
They're not doing the death race for you.
Not doing it, right? Well, they did do the death race.
But you didn't make them.
Yeah.
Did you?
Kind of.
Okay, good. Never mind. I take it back. He is hard. No.
But it's not that hard. They got a roof over their head. They get 5 meals a day. They get anything they want on app. It's not that bad. Yeah. But they got to work.
And raising your voice, for example. Do you raise your voice to your kids?
Not really. I'll wrestle them.
Wrestle them, nice. Yeah, everyone has. Like I had the worst, which I think motivated me, which gave me a great pain threshold. Is I was motivated by a single mom, 6 kids, and just straight guilt. And I tell people all the time, I'd much rather my mom would have hit me, which she never did, or wrestle me, than the guilt that she threw onto me.
Guilt's a powerful one. I mean, it builds religions.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, guilt's
finances companies too, by the way.
Yeah.
If you're really smart.
That's right. I was just with a guy the other day, a 40-year-old in Vermont at one of the wrestling tournaments, who tough guy, tough, gritty, could live out in the woods for a month, and he grew up with 2 brothers, and he said his mom was just tough. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when I was like 7, she had me cutting weight for wrestling down the basement, locked me in the basement, turned the wood stove on, and gotta sweat it out, right? If I talk back, I got literally punched in the face. She broke my nose once. Yeah.
I love that.
So he said people hearing that would think, oh, we got to call social service or whatever. But she made me and my brothers resilient, and today you just can't do that. And so everybody's so delicate, and I think what it does is it teaches helplessness.
Right.
That's what it does.
Victimization.
Yeah.
Treats
We're bubble wrapping our
Everything.
kids, right?
Yeah.
And protecting them from the shit they should know how to deal with.
Yeah.
I had some crap go on today. I'm sure you did.
Every day.
Right, every day.
Yeah.
And so, but you dust off.
Yeah. What tools can you use today? Because there is this transition of political correctness, of hypersensitivity. You know, the one thing that gets me, because I have a lot of younger people that I dedicate my life to. It's really what I'm about, having training millennials in intern programs, extern programs, to learn to have, you know, this threshold of pain or the ability to get things done. But my tools sometimes, you know, are not allowed or appreciated. People tell me I hurt their feelings, and it's not even that I'm yelling. Like I'll raise my voice so everyone in the office hears me, so they learn the lesson. But I'm not, you know, I'm not someone who yells and calls names. But the things I say sometimes are extremely constructive, you know. And I'll tell someone, "You did not do a good job," right? That sucked.
Right.
But I'll say things like that, and then, you know, my HR person will come in and say, "Dave, you can't be that mean.
You can't talk to people like that.
You're gonna hurt their feelings."
Gotta give them flowers first.
I guess, or a hug. I don't know, but then a hug is a problem too.
But there's a great book by Ken Blanchard, The 1 Minute Manager, and he talks about this idea that you got to set expectations the second you hire somebody, right, or befriend somebody, where you let them know that you're almost like a drill sergeant in the beginning of the relationship. And if you're not like that, and you're soft, and you don't set guardrails and expectations, and they don't know what the threshold, right?
The boundaries.
What the boundaries are, then it could get ugly, like you just described. So I think we owe it to our staff as leaders to set those expectations and boundaries right at the outset. So, and it's a quick read, that book, 1 Minute Manager.
Yeah,
it's like
the San Diego guy.
yeah, exactly.
A great guy.
20 pages. But the other thing is, it's too late by the time they get to the office. It's the upbringing that was the problem. And there's no way, so when you say what are the tools, there's no way around it. It requires hard physical things. There's no way around it.
And your system, the Spartan races, et cetera, and things like that, can be utilized in a corporate environment to change the perspective.
Yeah.
We did it at our company early on when you were first starting. We participated in some of the first Spartan races, and it was fun because I could see, you know, some of the softer employees that I had.
Broken right away.
Yeah, and their dynamic changed.
Yeah.
Why do people love it? Like, I feel these kids want to be pushed. They want to be disciplined. They want to have the right habits.
It's a feeling of accomplishment when it's over, right? When you do something hard, whether that's being disciplined and not eating. My kids are wrestling, right? So they got to cut weight for 2 days. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard for a 14-year-old to not eat for 2 days.
Yeah.
Right? And so all those little things add up, and then you've got a frame of reference. You've got something in your mind that you could call back on the next time you face something hard. So your team that came out and did the Spartan race, next time they don't meet the sales numbers they were supposed, whatever it is, and they're afraid they're going to get yelled at by you, they can envision what it was like crawling uphill for a mile under the barbed wire and say, it wasn't really that bad.
Yeah.
But if they grew up on Park Avenue and they were wrapped in bubble wrap and they never got yelled at and nothing ever went wrong, they never got pushed, well then you yelling at them, you know, it might as well be the car exploding, right?
It might be the mom punching them
exactly.
in the face.
Like,
yeah.
So you need some frame of reference. You got to go through tough times. I mean, the culture's always had a rite of passage before a child was grown up. They had to go do some vision quest, something hard. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I worked a lot in Kenya and built some community centers, and what the Maasai Warriors do by the time they're 13 years old to prove their manhood, quote unquote, is extraordinary. They literally are circumcised in front of the whole tribe, and if they flinch, they're then shepherds, they're not warriors. One of the other things that I find interesting is the consistent behavior. So I believe in enjoying a consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential. And I think that's ingrained in what you do personally. But it's also the consistency of when I'm looking at the things that you've created and done yourself, from the ultra marathon to the death races to just the regular Spartan races, that it's incremental. Like I say, lower the bar, and I know it's counterintuitive to people to understand. You will achieve more if you take bite-sized pain than bigger pain, and I see a lot of that philosophy in what you do.
Yeah, it's just people. Actually, one of my staff, Jason, had said to me when we were hiking in the mountains in the very early days of starting Spartan, "What do you do if you bite off more than you can chew? Keep chewing."
Yeah, right.
Right.
I like that.
So I learned very early on, 20 years ago, maybe more. There's a race in Queens, New York called the Transcendence Run. It goes around a 1 mile loop. It's 3,100 miles. So 3,100 times you go around a 1 mile loop. And you can't, when you do that event, you can't, or anything hard, think about 3,100 miles. You gotta think about 1 mile.
Yeah.
I gotta get done 1 mile. Get done with this one, I do the next one. And before you know it, you string them together and you get the thing done. And so,
how long does it last?
50 days, 60 days, depending on, if somebody could do 50 miles.
You get to go home and sleep, or you sleep on the course?
Most people sleep right there in a car or whatever.
Yeah.
But the point is, and you gotta pat yourself on the back. I did a mile, right? And you gotta give yourself those little wins along the way. I'm just gonna run to this telephone pole. Don't set. You can't have a sales target that's such a stretch goal, so impossible. Like you just can't envision that. This is what we're gonna do today. And then what we're going to do tomorrow. And maybe it's just we're going to make 100 phone calls.
Yeah. What do you think causes the mind or our perception to, when we look backwards at things, it's so fast, it's so easy, it's fulfilling. But when we're looking this way, it's so hard, it's so far.
Yeah. That's just...
Because you face that. The stuff that you do, I look at going...
You know what I think that is? Look, the human beings, we talked about it earlier, is guided by the avoidance of discomfort. Forward is uncomfortable. Reflecting on the past is easy. That's
Good
it.
point.
Right? Anything uncomfortable we want to avoid. So you got to flip it on its head and say, like your brother that works 21 hours a day, it will be more uncomfortable for me if I don't do this. Right?
Right.
If I don't work out in the morning, if I don't take a cold shower, if I don't hit my cells, that's more uncomfortable than actually doing the work.
Yeah, I think framing things is really important when you're allowed to say, what if, or if this would happen, it would be more or less, et cetera. I do that with time. Yeah. Right? I love to frame things and ask myself, what would I do if there's no such thing as time? Really test my faith instead of, I'm going to do this for some economic or currency that exists or doesn't exist. Now, beyond the family, you went to Cornell, so you worked hard in school as well, I'm sure. But it's different when you're an entrepreneur. And you were, I remember when you started, you weren't an overnight success, just like every other entrepreneur. No. And one of the things that I see that people do is when they get to about 25% of the way, they quit on their idea because of what everybody else is saying. How do you teach people, or what advice would you do? I call it voting for what other people want's the worst thing in the world. So there's one side, here's your parents pushing you, and we're telling parents, push your kids, help them build this resistance. But on the other side, don't listen to them, right? Vote for what you want. I always say listen to them, take their advice, and then assess it, right? Don't just ignore it. But that nuance, I think, you have such a great balance between being just a kick-ass, aggressive, pain threshold guy, but you also have that nuance side of it too, that you're voting for what you want. And believe me, I remember when they were laughing, scoffing, and joking about you. Now they applaud you because you were always the guy to vote for what you want. You're very clear on, no, we're not ready for that. Right. We're ready for this. How do you define that?
Well, so the first part of the question was I've got this chart that we created around anything, trying to achieve any success, a business, a relationship, running 100 miles. And it starts out with commitment. And that's peak excitement. You're committed. This is going to be great. We're building a new business. This new relationship is going to be fantastic. These people are great. And that's That's as excited as it's gonna. That's the
That's
best,
the best.
it's gonna be.
Exactly. I
It's
agree.
all downhill from there, right? Because then you got to actually start maximizing your time. Can't waste time anymore. Delaying gratification, not taking the cookies, waking up early, whatever those things are to help cheat, right? And eventually you get into the valley of death, where it's like not exciting anymore. It's the wrong relationship. I can't believe I started this business, and that's when the naysayers pile on. And the naysayers pile on. They're like, I told you not to run this marathon. You're too old. Your knees are. I told you not to marry this person, and that's where most people quit.
Yeah.
Right. I think the difference between success and failure at that moment in time is your frame of reference. So if you grew up in communist Russia in the 60s, 70s, whatever, and with cold water every day, whatever, like in that valley, it's like no big deal. Like, you kidding me? I'm getting 3 squares. Like, it's great, right? But again, to your earlier question when we first started the podcast, if you have never had anything hard to go through and you're in that valley of death, what your mind says to you, and you'll hear this from most people that quit their business, their relationship, whatever, oh, it wasn't right for me. The completely logical...
Blame, shame, and justification.
Exactly, right? Excuses, and which they'll regret later. But the people that come out of the valley of death and they push through and they grind and get gritty and 15 years losing money with Spartan Race. I'm sure you had the same experience with your business. I just reflected on worse things that I remember. People in jail, people dying, people like, it's not that bad. So what? We can't make payroll.
Right. And to that, right, you've been able to withstand incredible physical pain in your life, and you made a transition from kind of Wall Street into, hey, I'm going to change my entire physical, spiritual, emotional being, to having to face some of emotional challenges comparatively. Which ones do you feel are more challenging? Like the emotional side of raising children compared to the emotional side of, oh shit, we don't have payroll, which is, unless you live that, you don't know a real pain.
I think
people's lives depend on you.
Yeah, my father used to say, not everybody has a stomach to be an entrepreneur. So I personally think, I'm sure the women listening, the women in the room with this, like, I think running a business is worse than giving childbirth, right? I think it's the hardest.
You went there. That's awesome. With 4 kids, same with me. I said, I have to agree with you, and I'm sorry, Julie. I agree. It's so painful.
Running a business is, but you got to always just say to yourself, I get to do this. There's people with no hands. There's people with no legs. There's people living in tough places. They're getting circumcised in front of the whole tribe. Like,
Right.
There's shit going on in other places. They're not nearly as cool as running a business. So it comes with some pain and suffering. And you're not getting shot at.
So that's one of my best pieces of advice I tell people. Just say, I get to do this. I don't have to do this, right? And my wife will even, remind me of that because I forget every lesson I've ever learned anyway. Right. One of the difficulties, too, that I see, we have a lot of depression, anxiety, fear, and people are out there going, oh, and I find myself doing this to people to give them advice and help them. Oh, just see the glass half full. Just say, I get to do it. Learn to love everything that you do. Do you have any secrets that are kind of in that transition? Because I believe if you have this quantum memory, if you have your DNA, your chromosomes, your epigenetic layer of the DNA, everything's like coded to be depressed or to see things half empty. Are there any tools or advice that you can give that are stepping stones? Because I see myself as being too optimistic sometimes or inspirational, where I'm not connecting with someone saying, I empathize where you're at. Just try this to start. I don't expect you to be happy tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't have that chromosome.
Yeah.
I just don't have it. I'm just always optimistic. Everything will work. And we're in the middle of trying to get a deal done with Tough Mudder, our main competitor right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not supposed to be talking about it. And
now you are.
And now
you're not supposed to tell your wife that this is worse than childbirth, but you did. This is a great playbook.
And it's a pretty bumpy potential deal. And maybe we shouldn't do the deal. It's just so messy. And I find myself during this let's call it the last 30 days, where it's been for there's not many moments in my life where I'm like a little down or like fuck, and I don't know. But then I just snap out of it. I just you do 30 burpees.
Right.
You just snap out of it, and you're like, I guess here's the trick. Look at the upside and look at the downside. Is it really that bad. All right, we don't get this deal done. Like, so what?
Right. I say that all the time. You know,
Right? So what?
it's all irrelevant, but then you also have to put the challenge and make it relevant as well. What are the dangers or the downside? Because we both share the same personality trait. I call us Toughness. I mean, there's optimists out there. You could tell me I have to shovel shit with my hands for 6 days, and I'll find the upside of it and end up making money from it. It may take me some time doing it,
I agree.
but I'll figure it out.
Yep.
What's the biggest downside or challenge about being a Toughness?
You take on too much stuff, right?
Saying no?
Learn to say no. I mean, I do way too much stuff. But I don't know. I wouldn't have it any other way.
All right, last question and most important, because we share all these same personality traits. I don't believe in balance. And,
Neither do I.
And we have 4 kids.
Huh.
So what do you do philosophically to spend the appropriate amount of time with your children without saying, there's a balanced life for Joe Sena?
Integration.
What does that mean?
I integrate it all into it's one big mess.
Everything.
So, everything.
Yeah.
So business with the kids with the business, working out together, just one big mess. Eating and taking phone calls at once, and it's all mishmashed together.
I love it. And
I don't separate it, and so I start my workout 4 something in the morning. I'm getting them up at 5:15, 5:20, working out with them, doing phone calls in between, and then the whole day just blends into one mess.
And do you have a consistent relationship though? Because for me, what changed all my relationships, because I'm a complete blender like you, was when I decided.
Blender's a good word.
Right, you blend it all together. Was spending a minimum amount of time. I was just sharing with the team. Right, every day I spend a minimum of 30 minutes with my wife, whether I'm there or not.
Nice.
Not all together at one time.
Right.
Same with my 9-year-old. He gets 30 minutes no matter where I am in the world. The teenage girls get 2 minutes. You'll get there someday. And I beg for 5. And even my mom gets 1 minute. But it was the consistency of every day.
I'm adding that.
And it's just a minimum, but it changed especially with my mom. It's the best minute ever because as I became more active, I always call it, there's activity I get paid for, activity I don't. I'm busy. She would make me prove my love to her. Right? Because I was gone in Europe or this and that. And then I'd come home, it's like, can you drive down here and fix this? I'm like, no, but I'll pay someone. And then she'd be upset.
Right.
Ever since, and there's only 4 things I tell her every day. That I love her, appreciate her, and that I'm happy and I'm healthy. And the way that I got there was, those are the 4 things I want to hear from my kids.
Yeah, right.
If that's all I ever hear from them, they're happy, healthy, appreciate me, and love me,
you win.
I'm good.
Yeah,
And
I'm adding that to the program. I like that.
Right now, we'll finish up with that. Any last
I'm
lessons?
I'm gonna program them on my phone.
Right.
Yeah, I like
Good,
that.
man. I see, little takeaway there. So Joe, last thing, any last piece of advice from all the experience of kind of this pain threshold, building a business?
It's gonna sound very superficial. Work out every morning. Wake up early and work out every morning. Change your whole life.
I love it.
Yeah.
Put your health first. I guarantee it.
Yep.
An incredible entrepreneur. It's Joe Sena here with CEO and founder of Spartan, Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, The Playbook.